given up hope of finding anyone else alive in the rubble of Interstate 880.
The quake was the second deadliest in U.S. history, killing more than 270 people and injuring almost 700. Police, fire, and utility workers are going around the clock, and hundreds of Army and National Guard troops are on active duty to provide medical and other support to the battered Bay Area. Insurance companies expect more than $1 billion in earthquake damage claims. Good evening, everybody. I'm Leon Bidd.
And I'm Jill Beach. President Bush signed a disaster declaration for the demolished quake area. He says he will tour the blasted Bay region when he's sure that he will be out of the way of rescue workers. Here is a wrap-up of what the president will see.
More than 250 people were killed when the upper deck of Interstate 880 entombed hundreds of commuters driving on the lower deck. One man whose car was crushed to just 18 inches was pulled from the carnage alive. A truck driver said waves of asphalt shot up over his windshield. Paramedics searched furiously for survivors.
Horrible, horrible ways of dying. It's just awful. Do you think it was a sudden death situation? Some of them definitely yes. Some of them definitely yes.
Rescue workers tunneling through the collapsed wreckage of the highway have given up hope of finding anyone else alive. Some died as rescuers watched, helpless to free victims trapped in pulverized concrete and fire. The mile-long highway collapse is near Oakland. To the north and west, at the bridge linking Oakland and San Francisco, the killer quake again wreaked havoc. A 30-foot section of the bridge's upper level collapsed on the lower deck. Amazingly, no one was killed.
Luckily enough, all the cars were coming into San Francisco for the ball game, so very light traffic going into Oakland. And I was about a mile from the anchorage. And I said, wait a minute, this can't be. And for 45 seconds, the bridge started oscillating. And
major quake. It was centered near the infamous San Andreas Fault, about 8 miles northeast of Santa Cruz. That's about 75 miles south of San Francisco. You can see that the major effects of the quake was felt in an area about 200 miles across. There were a number, in fact, dozens of major aftershocks, some approaching the 5 range on the scale. Those aftershocks were nearly as big as the earthquake that we had here in Cleveland 3.5 years ago. And as Robin mentioned, serious questions about the crumbling of a major highway in Oakland, across the bay from San Francisco. Over 250 people died in the collapse of Interstate 880. 400 were injured. The top section of the highway fell onto the bottom. Cars were flattened until they were only a couple of inches high.
The number of missing persons at this time reported to Oakland is 86.
The missing are presumed dead. Rescuers don't think anyone is alive in here. Experts say the span should not have collapsed completely, even though it was built in the 50s before current earthquake building standards.
We haven't heard any live ones yet, but we know that there's buried victims in there.
In San Francisco, men and dogs are looking for survivors or bodies in the dozens of homes and apartments that collapsed in the quake or burned in the resulting fires.
And when I got here,
five, more or less, federal agencies coordinating their work to try to help in this disaster.
Californians struggled with widespread power outages, crippled transportation, and snarled, overloaded communications lines. The quake, measuring a 6.9 on the Richter scale, was a deadly second in strength to the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, when over 2,500 people were killed.
Power is now restored to over 2/3 of San Francisco.
There are hundreds of Clevelanders either in the Bay Area of California or who have relatives there, and the last 26 hours have been a frantic time for most of them. Channel 3's Tom Sweeney reports on people trying to find relatives.
Moment out here at the airport, as you said, just after 5, a Continental flight landed here with families, reuniting families, and it brought tears to your eyes. What you're about to see, Ted, are families meeting families. There were 2 small children waiting.
No, but I can say that we will take every step and make every effort to help the Bay Area in its hour of need.
Residents of San Francisco are being told to prepare for another day or 2 without some city services. Now, the World Series game has been canceled again tonight at Candlestick Park. They'll decide tomorrow when and where the series will resume. From this hour through the night and beyond, that interstate highway that collapsed will be taken apart piece by piece. Some 250 bodies are still trapped in cars. It could take weeks until that job is finished. Robin?
When you sit there and bounce around and you can't stand in the aisles, it was really a lot like that.
Then suddenly it felt like a big giant ape had grasped the stadium and was twisting it. So you were moving 3 or 4 feet on either side.
Karen Cooper of Lakewood did not learn until 2:30 this morning that her husband Doug was okay. He was staying at the Hyatt Hotel.
I was just getting out of the shower at the time it hit. So I stood in the door jam like a good soldier, you know, and then ran around and tried to get some clothes on. I figured if this thing's coming down in a pile of rubble, I am not going to go down naked. I want some clothes on.
Sarah Bale was at that hotel too. Everyone was told to leave, that the hotel might come down.
Well, I suppose it makes you think about what's important in life. I was worried about my luggage until they said that, so I don't know where it is now.
Later, Mrs. Bale may be concerned about her luggage. This evening, she and the others are just relieved to have come through the earthquake unhurt. Joe?
And there were San Francisco residents stranded in Cleveland trying to get home. That part of the story from Channel 3's Joe Mossbrook at Hopkins Airport.
They've been waiting all night to get a flight to San Francisco to get home and assess their damage.
Got through to Detroit to my in-laws, and they had already heard from California that our apartment was, the fellow that's watching said it was a shambles.
Teresa Heron lives in the Marina section of San Francisco.
What did you hear about
I found out that my home's okay and my husband's okay.
But she's an artist and afraid 3 years' worth of paintings may be gone.
what have you heard about your home?
Nothing yet. But it's 400 feet from the San Andreas Fault, so in Woodside, so just keeping my fingers crossed.
Had struck. There was Joe Morgan preparing to interview Willie Mays. Looking around, players took the field for safety. Some were met by crying wives, and others just wanted out of the 29-year-old stadium.
We had a packed house here. There was some catastrophe here.
These people were lucky. It was daylight, structural damage was minimal, and very few people were struck by falling debris.
In your estimation, does it look unsafe up there? It's unsafe.
People in San Francisco began the day thinking baseball, but they ended it thinking about more important things.
Well, changed the priorities, didn't it? We'll worry about baseball later. I just hope nobody
Showed no injury to players or their immediate families. As to Candlestick Park, well, that's still being surveyed, along with the Oakland Coliseum.
The early reports are that the damage to either place is not significant, but those are preliminary, and they have not been, neither stadium has been inspected by the proper engineers.
Speaking by candlelight, the commissioner would not speculate on an alternate site series, saying the priority would be to play the games in the Bay Area, but only after consideration to the mood of the community.
If you think about it, you'll recognize that if we play a game, we are going to be subtracting police and other government officials from other duties which may have a higher priority. I do not want to do that.
Again, at this hour, the commissioner is meeting with Bob Lurie of the Giants, Sandy Alderson of the A's, and city officials trying to work out when and where the World Series will continue, how soon it will continue. In regard to the alternate sites, we worked the phones that did work today, checking with the sites that were mentioned: San Diego, Anaheim, Dodger Stadium, and Seattle. The San Diego Stadium has a torn up, actually their infield, the dirt has been taken out, and they have a football game Saturday and Sunday, so they have pretty much removed themselves from the situation. Both Anaheim and Dodger Stadium said their fields are not in the best of condition, but if baseball needed their help, they could be ready to play the series at those sites. And Seattle, the Kingdome, Bob, has nothing scheduled other than a football game Sunday and in a matter of 12 hours.
At second base, so the Oakland A's take.
The fans in the stands remained calm. We and they thought the quake would be nothing more than an inconvenience.
Well, folks, that's the greatest open in the history of television, bar none.
But the players and their families were not taking the quake lightly.
You know, you just could hear the rumbling. You didn't know if it was the people in the stands or what, but
you know, all of a sudden everything started shaking and the blackout came, and we all decided, you know, we got a big earthquake, let's get out.
Well, first of all, your primary concern is like, where's my family, where's my kids, my wife, you know, so, you know, the guys went out in the open area, and then we started looking for our families, and, you know, they say aftershock is coming, which is supposed to be just as bad as the quake itself.
Kind of puts things in perspective, makes you realize just the insignificance of a baseball game and the World Series, even though it's a big deal, but more important, lives and family, and that was my first focus.
When the time came and the power returned to Candlestick, stadium officials acted quickly.
Once again, today's game has been postponed.
The thing that's important that I want to point out is that we will not compromise the public safety.